The warning came on a Tuesday. Ambassador Kethra of the Zephyrian Crystal Collective was enjoying his morning meditation when the emergency signal tore through the council chambers. The sound was harsh and ugly, like metal scraping against stone. All 12 species of the Galactic Council felt it in their own way. The aquatic deep mind felt it as ripples in their water tanks. The machine beings of the Nexus hierarchs registered it as corrupted data streams. The humans, newest and youngest members of the council, simply heard it as what it was, a scream for help. The transmission came from Sector 7 Alpha, far out on the galaxy's edge. The voice belonged to Captain Morok of the freight hauler Bright Dawn. His words came through broken and full of static. "This is Captain Morok. My ship is damaged. My crew is dead. They came from nowhere. They ate everything. The planets, the stations, even the asteroids, nothing is left. They took it all into themselves and kept moving. I am the only ship that escaped. They are coming toward the core worlds. Someone has to stop them. Someone has to." The transmission ended. The council chamber fell silent. 12 different species looked at each other with expressions that meant the same thing in every language. Fear. High. Chancellor Vex 9 of the Nexus hierarchs was the first to speak. His mechanical voice was calm and measured, as always. "We require more data before any action can be determined. One transmission is insufficient evidence for a sector-wide threat." The Deep Mind Collective representative, who had no name that land dwellers could pronounce, sent ripples through her tank. The translator converted her thoughts to words. "The ocean of space is vast. Perhaps this threat will find other currents to follow." Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth sat forward in her chair. She was young by council standards, only 43 years old. Most of the other representatives had lived for centuries. But her voice carried weight when she spoke. 12 hours ago, we had contact with 17 worlds in Sector 7 Alpha. Now we have none. Something destroyed an entire sector in less than half a day. How much more data do you need? Kethra's crystal body chimed softly as he moved. The human speaks with passion, but passion clouds judgment. We must consider our own peoples first. The Zephyrian worlds require our full attention for the crystal harvest season. The Nexus hierarchs agree, said Vex 9. Our calculations show a 97% probability that this threat cannot reach the core worlds. Distance provides safety. Elena stood up. Her voice was getting louder. Distance didn't help the 12 billion people who lived in that sector. They're all dead now. The representative of the Thorak Empire, a large being covered in thick fur, growled low in his throat. The Thorak have fought many wars. We know when a battle cannot be won. This enemy, whatever it is, destroyed 17 worlds in 12 hours. No force in the galaxy can stand against such power. More voices joined in. The slug-like healer caste spoke of their need to tend to their sick. The energy beings of the Bright Collective said they had to return to their home star to feed. The plant-like gardener species claimed their growing season was too important to interrupt. Elena listened to each excuse with growing anger. These were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Some had traveled between stars for thousands of years, before humans even learned to make fire. They had technology that seemed like magic to human eyes, and they were all afraid. You're going to abandon them, she said. It wasn't a question. We are being practical, said Kethra. The Outer Rim has always been dangerous. Those who choose to live there accept the risks. Practical, Elena repeated. 12 billion dead, and you call it practical. The Deep Mind Collective sent new ripples through their tank. The young human does not understand. Sometimes sacrifice is necessary for the greater good. The core worlds hold trillions of lives. We cannot risk them for the few. The few? Alana's voice cracked. 12 billion people were not the few. High Chancellor Vex 9 processed data for 3.7 seconds before speaking. The mathematics are clear. Any force capable of destroying 17 worlds so quickly would destroy our fleets just as easily. Sending ships would only add to the death count. Elena looked around the chamber. Every face, mechanical interface, crystal formation, and energy pattern told her the same thing. They had already decided. The outer rim was lost, and they would not fight for it. The vote was called. 11 species voted to seal the borders and defend only the core worlds. 1 species voted to send aid to the outer rim. The humans lost. Elena gathered her papers and stood. Her small team of advisors stood with her. As they walked toward the exit, she turned back to address the council one final time. When this threat breaks through your borders, and it will, don't come crying to humanity for help. You've shown us exactly what your word is worth. Kethra's crystal body chimed again. The human is emotional. She will understand our wisdom in time. Elena stopped walking. No, Ambassador. I understand your cowardice perfectly well right now. The chamber doors closed behind the human delegation with a sound like thunder. 3 hours later, every human ship in the galaxy received the same message from Earthfleet. Command. All vessels return to Sol System immediately. Full mobilization. Authorized. We're going to war. The galaxy's children were about to show their elders what courage looked like. The human fleet gathered like storm clouds around Earth. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the ESEF Defiance, watching as more ships arrived every hour. Warships came first, the heavy cruisers and destroyers that formed the backbone of Earth's defense, but they were not enough. Not nearly enough for what they were planning to do. So other ships came too. Cargo haulers had weapons welded to their hulls. Passenger liners were stripped down and fitted with armor plating. Even mining ships from the asteroid belt joined the growing fleet. Their industrial lasers turned into weapons of war. Elena had never seen so many human ships in one place. Admiral Chun wants to see you, said Lieutenant Rodriguez, Elena's aide. She's on the Beijing. Elena took a shuttle to the flagship. Admiral Sarah Chun was 58 years old and had fought in 3 border wars. She was the kind of person who never raised her voice because she never needed to. When she spoke, people listened. Elena, Chun said as she entered the briefing room, I watched your speech to the council. Good work making them show their true colors. I didn't do anything special, Elena replied. I just told the truth. That's exactly what made it special. Chun pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots mark the lost worlds in Sector 7 Alpha. We've lost contact with 6 more systems since yesterday. Whatever this enemy is, they're moving fast. Elena studied the display. How many ships do we have? 412 combat vessels. 800 support ships. About 500,000 crew members total. Chun's voice was steady, but Elena could hear the weight behind the numbers. It's the largest fleet humanity has ever assembled. Is it enough? Chun was quiet for a long moment. Probably not. But it's what we have. The briefing room door opened, and Fleet Captain James Murphy walked in. He commanded the carrier group from Proxima Centauri. Behind him came Captain Lisa Park from the Mars Defense Fleet, and Colonel Jan Wei from the Military Transport Division. More officers filed in until the room was full. Chun activated the hologram again. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know why. We're here. The Galactic Council has abandoned the Outer Rim. Billions of people are going to die unless someone helps them. The other species have decided that someone won't be them. A few officers cursed it under their breath. Elena didn't blame them. The betrayal still felt fresh and sharp. So it's going to be us, Chun continued. We're going to take this fleet to Sector 7 Alpha, and we're going to fight. We don't know what we're fighting yet, but we're going to fight it anyway. Captain Murphy raised his hand. Admiral, do we have any intelligence on this enemy? Anything. At all. Very little. The few ships that escaped before communication was lost all tell the same story. The enemy appears suddenly, destroys everything in the system, then moves on. They don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They just consume everything and keep moving. Consume? Asked Captain Park. What does that mean exactly? Chun pulled up a recording from one of the escape ships. The image was grainy and full of static, but Elena could make out something massive moving between the planets. It looked wrong. Somehow, like her eyes couldn't quite focus on it properly. According to the survivors, these things don't just destroy matter. They absorb it somehow. Planets, ships, space stations, everything gets pulled into them and disappears. The survivors call them devourers. The room fell silent. Elena stared at the image and felt cold fear creep up her spine. This wasn't just an invasion fleet. This was something else entirely. Colonel Zhang spoke first. How do you fight something like that? We'll figure it out, Chun said simply. Humans are good at adapting. Admiral, said Captain Murphy. With respect, this enemy destroyed 17 worlds in 12 hours. Our entire fleet might not last 12 minutes against something like that. Chun nodded. You're probably right. But here's the thing, James. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't about winning. Sometimes it's just about showing up. Elena found herself speaking without meaning to. The other species are watching us. They think we're going to fail. Let them watch, Chun replied. Let them see what happens when humans get angry. The meeting continued for 2 more hours. They discussed supply lines and communication protocols and battle formations. But Elena knew that all the planning in the galaxy wouldn't matter if they couldn't figure out how to actually hurt these devourers. After the meeting, Elena walked through the ship corridors. Everywhere she looked, she saw humans preparing for war. Engineers worked on weapon systems. Pilots ran combat simulations. Medical teams practiced treating battle wounds. None of them seemed afraid. They seemed angry. Elena found Admiral Chun on the observation deck, looking out at the fleet. Hundreds of ships floated in space around Earth, their lights twinkling like stars. They volunteered, you know, Chun said without turning around. Every single ship out there. We put out the call for volunteers, and they came. Freighter captains, who've never fired a shot in anger. Miners from the belt who just wanted to help. Even some civilian transports offered to carry supplies. Why? Elena asked. They have to know this is probably a suicide mission. Chun finally turned to look at her. Because they're human. And humans don't abandon people who need help. 3 days later, the fleet was ready. Elena stood on the bridge of the Defiance as Admiral Chun gave the order to jump. 412 warships and 800 support vessels disappeared into hyperspace, carrying 500,000 humans toward a war they probably couldn't win. Behind them, the galaxy watched and waited to see if the youngest species in the Council had enough fury to succeed where wisdom had failed. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace and found hell waiting for them. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped her command chair as the Defiance's sensors picked up what remained of the Kepler system. 3 days ago, this system had been home to 2 billion people spread across 4 worlds. Now there was nothing but empty space and debris. Admiral Chun to all ships, came the voice over the comm. Stay in formation. Keep your sensors active. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. Elena looked at the main screen. Where the planet Kepler Prime should have been, there's only a cloud of dust and broken metal. The other 3 worlds were gone too. Even the asteroid belt that had provided mining materials for the colonies had disappeared. It was as if someone had erased an entire solar system. Captain, said Lieutenant Rodriguez from the sensor station. I'm picking up movement. Something big, really big. Put it on screen. The image that appeared made Elena's blood turn cold. It was impossible to look at directly. Her eyes kept trying to focus on it, but it seemed to shift and change every time she blinked. The thing was massive, maybe 10 kilometers long, and it moved through space like a living creature. Parts of it looked like metal, but other parts seemed organic. And it was heading straight for the human fleet. All ships, battle stations. Admiral Chun's voice cut through the bridge noise. This is what we came here for. The first attack came. Without warning. The Devourer fired some kind of energy beam that cut through space like a sword. The ESF Marathon, a heavy cruiser, was caught in the beam. Elena watched in horror as the ship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart, just gone. Return fire. Chun ordered. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Plasma cannons, missile batteries, laser arrays, all of it focused on the alien creature. The weapons hit their target and exploded in brilliant flashes of light. When the light faded, the Devourer was still there, completely undamaged. Our weapons aren't even scratching it, reported Captain Murphy over the comm. What the hell is that thing made of? Elena watched as the creature moved closer. It was beautiful in a horrible way, like watching a storm that could kill you. More energy beams lanced out from its surface. The destroyer, ESF Courage, vanished. Then the frigate New Hope. In less than 5 minutes, the humans had lost 7 ships and hadn't managed to hurt the enemy at all. Admiral, Elena called over the comm. We need to fall back and regroup. Negative, Chun replied. We didn't come this far to run away at the first sign of trouble. But the trouble was more than they had bargained for. The Devourer was moving through their formation like a shark through minnows. Human ships scattered in all directions, trying to avoid the energy beams. Some made it. Many DIDN single quotes T. Elena watched the tactical display as red dots disappeared one by one. Each dot represented hundreds of human lives. Good people who had volunteered to come here and die for strangers they had never met. Captain, said Rodriguez, the Admiral is trying something. On the main screen, Elena saw the flagship Beijing moving toward the Devourer at maximum speed. Chun was going to ram it. All ships, this is Admiral Chun. I'm going to try to get close to this thing. Maybe we can learn something before it kills. US all, continue the attack and watch what happens. The Beijing fired its engines and shot toward the alien creature. The Devourer turned its attention to the approaching flagship and fired multiple energy beams. The Beijing shields held for maybe 3 seconds before failing. But Chun kept flying straight at the monster dot at the last second. Something unexpected happened. The Beijing didn't hit the Devourer. Instead, the ship seemed to stretch and twist as it got close to the creature's surface. Elena realized with growing horror that the thing was pulling the Beijing apart at a molecular level, absorbing the ship piece by piece. But in those final moments, the Beijing's sensors recorded something important. Elena heard Chun's voice one. Last time over the comm, it's not solid. The surface is some kind of energy field. The real body is inside. All ships, focus your fire on the core. Look for the bright spot in the center. That's where it lives. The Beijing disappeared into the Devourer, but its sacrifice had given the humans their first real intelligence about the enemy. Elena felt rage building in her chest. Sarah Chun had been a good admiral and a better person. She had died trying to save people she had never met, just like all the other humans who had vanished into that monster. All ships, Elena found herself saying over the comm. You heard the Admiral. Focus on the core. Make them pay for what they did. The human fleet regrouped and attacked again. This time they aimed for the bright spot in the center of the Devourers. Shifting form. Their weapons still couldn't penetrate the energy field, but something was different. The creature seemed to slow down slightly when they hit the core area. It felt that, reported Captain Murphy. Whatever we're doing, it doesn't like it. The battle continued for another hour. The humans lost ship after ship, but they kept learning. They discovered that the Devourers had to slow down to absorb matter, which made them vulnerable for a few seconds. They found out that concentrated fire could disrupt the energy field temporarily. Most importantly, they learned that these things could be hurt. When the first Devourer finally died, it didn't explode like a normal ship. Instead, it simply collapsed in on itself and disappeared, leaving behind only empty space and the faint echo of something that might have been a scream. The humans had won their first victory. But Alina looked at her tactical display and felt sick. They had started with 412 warships. Now they had 215. Almost half their fleet was gone, and they had only killed one enemy. "This is Captain Park," came a voice over the comm. "Sensors are picking up more movement, multiple contacts. They're coming." Alina looked at the sensor readings and counted 12 more Devourers approaching from different directions. The real battle was just beginning. "All ships," she said over the comm. "We came here to fight, so let's fight. For Admiral Chun, for Earth, for everyone who's counting on us." The human fleet turned to face the approaching monsters. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the Devourers didn't understand. They had fury. And they were about to show the galaxy what humans could do when they got angry enough. 6 months after the first battle, Captain Elena Vasquez looked nothing like the diplomat who had once argued with the Galactic Council. Her hair was gray at the temples now, and deep lines marked her face. The war had aged her in ways that went beyond mere years. She stood on the bridge of her third ship. The first 2 had been destroyed in battle she barely survived. This one was called the ESF Revenge, and it was held together with spare parts and human stubbornness. Most of the fleet was the same way now. "Status report," Elena said to her new crew. Most of the original officers were dead. Rodriguez had died 4 months ago when a Devourer tore apart his ship. Elena tried not to think about all the friends she had lost. "We've got 43 combat ships left," reported Lieutenant Patel, the new tactical officer. 22 are badly damaged. "We've got maybe a week of supplies remaining." Elena nodded. The numbers were always bad these days. They had started with over 400 warships. Now they had less than 50. But somehow, impossibly, they were winning. "What about the enemy?" "Our scouts report 3 Devourers left in this sector. We've killed 27 of them over the past 6 months." Elena felt a grim satisfaction. Each Devourer they killed saved billions of lives in the core worlds. The creatures had stopped advancing toward the galaxy's center 3 months ago. Instead, they seemed focused on destroying the human fleet that kept attacking them. "Man," said Ensign Thompson at the communication station. "We're getting a transmission from Earth." Elena's heart jumped. They hadn't heard from home in 2 months. The last message had been bad news about Earth's economy collapsing under the cost of supporting the war effort. Put it through. The face that appeared on the screen was President Martinez. She looked tired, but her voice was steady. "Captain Vasquez, this is a message for all remaining fleet personnel. I want you to know that Earth is proud of what you've accomplished out there." Elena waited for the rest. There was always a rest, with messages from politicians. "However," the president continued, "the situation at home has become critical. We've spent everything we had to keep you supplied. Our economy is failing. Unemployment is at 60%. Food rationing has begun in most cities. The council has offered to provide aid if we end our involvement in the Outer Rim." Elena felt her stomach drop. She knew what was coming. "I'm ordering the immediate withdrawal of all Earth forces from Sector 7 Alpha. You've done enough. Come home." The transmission ended. Elena stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Around her, the bridge crew was silent. "Captain," said Lieutenant Patel quietly, "what are our orders?" Elena thought about Earth, about the people starving while their government poured resources into a war on the other side of the galaxy. about families who had lost sons and daughters to keep fighting an enemy that most humans had never heard of 6 months ago. She thought about the 3 devourers still out there, about the refugee camps they had passed during their retreat from the last system, about the children who had looked at human ships with hope in their eyes because humans were the only ones who had come to help. "Signal all ships," Alina said finally. "We're staying." "Ma'am?" Patel looked confused. "But the President ordered." "The President can order Earth forces to withdraw," Elena interrupted. "But we're not Earth forces anymore. We're volunteers fighting for people who can't fight for themselves." Elena opened a channel to the entire fleet. 43 ships, maybe 15,000 people, left alive out of the 500,000 who had started this war. "This is Captain Vasquez to all ships. You've heard the message from Earth. We've been ordered to withdraw. But I'm not going anywhere. There are still 3 of those monsters out there, and millions of people who will die if we leave. Anyone who wants to go home can take a shuttle to the transport ships. No one will think less of you for leaving." She paused, looking around her. Bridge at the faces of her crew. Young people who had signed up to serve their planet and ended up fighting for the galaxy instead. "But if you stay, we're going to finish this. We're going to kill every last one of these things, even if it kills us too. Because that's what humans do. We don't abandon people who need help." Elena waited. She expected some of her crew to request transfer to the transports, maybe half of them. Maybe more. Nobody moved. "All ships reporting in," said Thompson. "No request for transfer, Captain. Everyone's staying." Elena felt tears in her eyes. "Signal the transports. Tell them to head back to Earth. We won't need them anymore." The final battle began 3 days later. The last 3 devourers had gathered together, as if they knew the humans were coming for them. Elena led her tiny fleet against monsters that had once seemed invincible. The battle was brutal. The humans had learned to fight these things, but they were down to their last ships and their last ammunition. One by one, human vessels fell to the enemy's energy beams. But each ship that died took pieces of the devourers with it. Elena watched the Revenge's sister ship, the ESF Fury, ram straight into a devourer's core. Both ship and monster disappeared in a flash of light that lit up the entire system. It was over. Elena's ship was alone in space. The 3 devourers were dead. So were 42 human ships and 14,000 people who had chosen to stay and fight. Elena sat in her command chair and looked at the empty space around her. The Revenge was barely functional. Half her crew was dead. But they had won. The last devourer in Sector 7 Alpha was gone. "Captain," said Patel, his voice barely a whisper, "we did it." Elena nodded. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them Sector 7 Alpha is secure. The threat is over." She paused, thinking about what else to say. "Tell them that 43 ships and 15,000 volunteers gave their lives to save people they never met. Tell them that when the galaxy needed heroes, only humans answered the call." Elena looked out at the stars and thought about the price they had paid. Earth was bankrupt. A generation of humans was dead. But somewhere in the core worlds, billions of people were alive because a few humans had gotten angry enough to fight for them. It had been worth it. She hoped the galaxy would remember. 1 year after the war ended, Captain Elena Vasquez stood before the Galactic Council again. But this time, everything was different. She was no longer the young diplomat who had argued for action while others made excuses. The woman who faced the council now had gray hair and scars on her hands from working on damaged ships. She wore a simple Earth Fleet uniform, not the fancy diplomatic clothes from before. And when she spoke, the entire galaxy listened. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from all 12 species were there, but so were thousands of others. Refugees from the Outer Rim had come to see the woman who had saved their lives. News reporters from across the galaxy broadcast her every word. Even species that weren't part of the council had sent observers. High Chancellor Vex 9 of the Nexus Hierarchs stood first. His mechanical voice was different now, softer somehow. Captain Vasquez, the Galactic Council wishes to formally thank humanity for their service in the Outer Rim crisis. Your sacrifice saved billions of lives. Elena looked at him without expression. Our sacrifice? The Council has prepared a full compensation package for Earth's losses, said Ambassador Kethra of the Zephyrian Crystal Collective. His crystal body chimed nervously. Monetary aid, technological transfers, preferential trade agreements. We understand the war was costly for your people. Costly, Elena repeated. She looked around the chamber at faces that had once dismissed. Humanity as primitive children. You want to pay us? The deep-mind collective representative sent ripples through her water tank. We believe it is appropriate. Humanity bore a burden that should have been shared by all civilized species. Elena was quiet for a long moment. In the silence, she could hear her own heartbeat. She thought about Admiral Chun, who had died ramming her ship into a monster to save strangers. She thought about Rodriguez and Thompson and Patel and 14,000 other humans who had never come home. Keep your money, she said finally. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Kethra's crystal body chimed louder. Captain, perhaps you don't understand the scope of what we're offering. This compensation could rebuild Earth's entire economy. I understand perfectly, Elena replied. You're offering to pay us for doing what you should have done yourselves. You want to buy your way out of feeling guilty. She stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. When she spoke again, her voice carried to every corner of the vast room. 1 year ago, I stood in this same spot and begged you to help. I showed you evidence that billions of people were going to die. And you all found reasons to look the other way. Elena pointed at the Thorak Empire representative. You said the battle couldn't be won. She turned to the healer caste delegate. You said your own people needed you more. Her gaze moved to each species in turn. All of you had excuses. All of you were afraid. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the reporters had stopped recording, so humans went alone. We sent every ship we had and 500,000 volunteers to fight something that scared you. Too much to even try. Most of them died, but they won. They saved your precious core worlds and every life in them. Elena's voice was getting stronger, angrier. And now you want to pay us? You think money can make up for the fact that you abandoned billions of people to die? High Chancellor Vex 9 processed data for several seconds before responding. Captain, what would you have us do? The past cannot be changed. We seek to make amends. You want to make amends? Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. Then change. Be better. The next time someone needs help, don't count the cost. Don't calculate the odds. Don't look for excuses. Just help. She turned to address the crowd of refugees in the chamber's upper levels. Many of them were species she had never seen before, beings from the outer rim worlds that the Council had written off as expendable. These people know what humanity did for them. They know that when everyone else looked away, humans came running. They know that sometimes the youngest voice in the room is the only one worth hearing. Elena walked back toward the exit, but stopped when she reached the door. Oh, and one more thing. Earth is starting a new organization. The Outer Rim Defense Force. Any species that wants to help protect the people you abandoned can join. Any species that's more interested in making excuses can stay here and debate. As Elena left the chamber, something unexpected happened. The Thorak Empire representative stood up. The Thorak Empire wishes to join this defense force. Then the healer caste delegate rose, as do the healers. One by one, every species in the council stood and declared their intention to join humanity's new alliance. Even the Nexus hierarchs, who had calculated the odds against helping, committed their fleets to protecting the outer rim. Elena paused in the doorway and looked back. For the first time in a year, she smiled. 6 months later, Elena stood on the FIO bridge of the new ESF Defiance, flagship of the Outer Rim Defense Force. Through the viewports, she could see ships from a dozen different species flying in formation. Zephyrian crystal ships moved alongside human destroyers. Thorok battlecruisers escorted healer medical vessels. "Captain," reported her new first officer, a young Nexus Hierarchs unit designated Vex 23, were receiving a distress call from the Andorian system. Pirate attack in progress. Elena looked at the mixed fleet around her ship. A year ago, these species had been too afraid to help anyone. Now they flew together to protect strangers they had never met. "Signal all ships," Elena said. "Set course for Andorian space, maximum speed." As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Elena thought about Admiral Chun and all the others who had died to save the Outer Rim. They had shown the galaxy what courage looked like. Now their sacrifice was paying forward, inspiring others to be brave when bravery was needed. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. When people needed help, the answer wasn't to count the cost or calculate the odds. The answer was simple: you showed up, you fought, you saved whoever you could save, and if you were very lucky, your courage would inspire others to be brave too. In the end, that was humanity's greatest victory. Not defeating the Devourers, but teaching the galaxy that sometimes the right thing to do was also the hardest thing to do, and that it was worth doing anyway.